When I am dead, wrap the mantle of the red, the black and the green around me. For in the new life I shall rise up with God's grace and blessings to lead the millions of the heights and the triumph that you well know. Look for me in a world when there is storm. Look for me all around you. For the God's grace, I shall come back with countless millions of black men and women who have died in America, those who have died in the West Indies, and those who have died in Africa. To aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and life.
Greetings, my African people. I hope everyone is doing good. Welcome, Kabo, Nyawizom. Today we are going to talk about psychology, its importance, and why Black people should be studying or paying attention to certain patterns. Today I'm going to have one of my dear brothers, Brother Kofi. So join in, brothers and sisters. Again, this is a channel for us African people solely, and we'll be talking about African issues, of course, and providing solutions as well. So once again, welcome to the Oya Show. I'm your host, Brother Avenon. Welcome, Brother Kofi.
Thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome, brother. So I know you've been talking about psychology for quite some time on your Instagram page. So I feel like you'll be the right person to talk about this subject, of course, and since it's something pertinent to Black people, we rather have a Black brother. So, Brother Kofi, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Oh well, my introduction doesn't really need too much time. I'm just a brother who works. When I wasn't working, I would use whatever little money I had to buy books here and there. And I don't know what made me take a particular interest in psychology, but I just thought it was interesting. And that kind of translated over to when I started to see that there were certain issues within the African group. And I said to myself, there's got to be something to all of this madness here. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really that much into economics, and even if you do get into economics, I just didn't think it was that interesting. And I said that it's plenty of other people that probably are interested in it. So I said to myself, well, psychologically, what is plaguing African people, and not just the boring old fashioned like, oh, you people are brainwashed, or you people think this way, or you people do these things. And it's, I said the customs that we have, the historical narrative of who African people are, what African people have always done, and how do a people end up in a position like this. That's what I was interested in. And then I said to myself, well, are we even capable of improving our situation based on who we've always been, who we are now? That's basically what I centered, my buying of books around. Even if the book didn't answer that question, I figured, all right, maybe I could get something out of this book that maybe somebody else didn't get out of it. And it wouldn't even have to be psychology books per se. It would just be books that I felt maybe would answer my questions or give me some ideas of something I could come up with. So yeah, I'm not like formally trained or anything like that. I just, I'm just a guy that was just curious, and I had questions that I felt that I could answer myself.
Thank you, brother Kofi, once again, for being here. And I know you have been reading a lot of books on psychology or if not reading books, trying to understand exactly what you said, like how come a group of people are still struggling, and what happened to that group, and what are the answers and solutions, right? So I will go on, brother, with the first question, which is hold on a quick second. Just gonna put it there real quick. So the question is, it's a broad question. How, brother Kofi, would you define psychology, or what is psychology in your
I
own
would
term?
define I would define it as the overall way in which a person navigates reality and how you react to things, what makes you upset, what might make you happy, what might make you sad, why you do things, um, whether or not you change your ways, whether you're just you're static or you are adaptive. So psychology is, to me, is a person's ability to deal with things as they're met with them. So if I'm met with a difficult situation, and I've been met with difficult situations before, but I deal with it the same way every single time. I don't try, oh, I say to myself, well, that didn't work for me last time, or that had a certain outcome last time. So maybe I should do it differently this time, or a reason for why I do things, and then it becomes a habit. So I think it's your habits. I think it's your whatever customs that are born out of just who you might happen to be, your group, um, and the kind of group you come from, and everything. I think psychology is really what people would call your soul, your spirit. That's how I
So,
would define it.
brother Kofi, I don't know if when you're moving, the mic is moving as well. I don't know if you're on a mic or if it's your phone.
Oh yeah. Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
Let me take this off.
yeah. Sometimes we can't hear you properly. But brother, just another question briefly before I go to the second slide. How would you do you see any correlation between spirituality and psychology?
Oh, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, now it's way better. Yes.
Okay, cool. What was the question? I'm sorry.
No, no problem. No, I was asking you if for you again, that's personal question. Do you see a correlation between psychology and spirituality?
Yeah, that's something that I used to. I didn't like talking about it because I wasn't really, like I said, spirituality. I felt in the beginning was way different from psychology. I thought that psychology was just how someone thought and how they acted and all those things. So once I got into a little bit into spirituality, I said, well, I mean, it doesn't really differ too much from psychology because this is basically how someone is navigating the world. This is how someone is making sense of things and kind of finding a way to have control over this situation and defining things. And it's kind of like naming things. And so, like, all right, spirituality is in how I've learned it. So, like, the Akan religion is a sort of psychological makeup where your relationship with God is how you define it and how your ancestors have defined it and how society where you come from has defined it. So that's in my opinion, based on what I've read, both from people from Ghana, from Akan country, and just I guess psychologists in general, that's a psychological thing, spirituality. Just like Christianity, just like Islam, that is a people's psychological makeup in like it's kind of like in a religious form. So if you would take so if it makes sense, if you would take a people's collective psychology and you were to kind of mythologize it, or you were to make it into a religion, that's basically a psychology of a people.
Great, great. No, I really love the answer. Brothers and sisters, again, thanks for tuning in. I hope you're taking notes. And if there are questions, don't be shy. Ask the questions. We're here to brainstorm. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. So once again, thanks, brothers and sisters, for tuning in. I will go to the next slide real quick. A quick second. So, any questions, brothers and sisters? We're here to learn. Our issues are so numerous. So we just need to find some solutions. Find a way to, I will say, spread the message out there. The importance of analyzing our way of thinking, our way of doing certain things. That's why, I have my brother Kofi here because he has been for a very long time trying to understand why do black people, I don't really like using black people, but I would say African people in general behave the way they behave, and he has been very, I would say, sharp in recommending books or asking questions. Some may see those questions as rhetorical questions, but actually those questions, when you ask yourself those questions, when you are honest with yourself, you understand that we have a lot of issues that are not even looked at, like people are not even addressing those issues. And those are, you know, big issues because we are literally transferring those traumas back, to the next generation. So if nobody's there is there asking the good questions or the right questions, it's going to be difficult to address certain issues. So that's why I feel like this topic is very important. Let's talk about our brain, about let's think about how we think as Black people. Period. So once again, family, thanks for tuning in. So the second slide, brother Kofi, hold on a quick second. I think I'm having some technical issues. Let me see this real quick. Sorry, family. There we go. Can you see my screen? No. Okay. So, brother, I know you answered that question already, but if you can just, break it down a little bit. So, why is it important for people's survival? Like, why is psychology important?
I think that again, when we have these types of discussions, I think it's important that people understand that everyone is entitled to having an opinion on things, but
Mm-hmm.
when you have people who are curious about things, and you have maybe like a curiosity that kind of goes beyond just, I wonder what makes us like this, like why are we like this? Like you see people ask that question, but then you have people who say, no, I need to figure this out because this is just doesn't make sense. I need to figure this
Mm-hmm.
out. And you go from buying maybe one book to then saying, okay, well, I have an idea, and then you buy another book. So when we have discussions like this, people who have these discussions should be people who are well read. I think that's extremely important. And I think that it would be important for us as a group, the African group, to have people who are well read to answer these questions. So I think that psychology is important for people's survival because that's the question. Yes,
Yes, that's the question.
I think that it's important because if you show the ability to, okay, say things get to a point where it seems like, oh, this is just devastating. One of my favorite examples is if you study European history. Europeans have gone through some devastating things, man. Plagues, all kind of disease, wars, all kind of wars, man. Wars. Um, Things that have wiped out like so many people in Europe, and they've just had these periods in time where they just bounce back from it. Somehow they just keep bouncing back from it. So as much as we have people who disparage Europeans have something in their psyche, in their group psyche, something that makes them so resilient. I think that if they didn't have that, they wouldn't be in the position that they're in today. And I think that if they didn't have that, they wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that they've done in their past. So when you look at the African group, I think that it's interesting to see the types of things that Africans we've gotten ourselves into, as far as economically, spiritually, and you say, okay, what do we do in response to these periods in time? And maybe people have forgotten, because they say Africans don't write anything, or Africans don't, we don't really care to read anything, which is not true. I think that it's very important that we understand historically our psychology, and contemporarily our psychology, because if we don't, we're going to continue making the same mistakes. So if you want to be a strong group, you have to understand who you were yesterday, today, and then who you have to be going forward. We hear that so many times, but it's simple. It's very true. It's very true. And any group of people that wants to be stronger, they want to be more, they want to create some kind of hegemony, they will do that. That's why it's important for you to, break down and work on your psychology as a social group, whether it's a small group or it's a larger group that wants to, spread this this socialization process.
Any questions, my brothers and sisters out there? Just gonna wait a few seconds. If anybody has a question, let us know. Once again, peace to my African family out there. We feel like this is a very important topic, and this is something we have to take seriously, just like Brother Kofi just mentioned. We often brag about how tough we are, as a group of people, how strong we are. But when you look at the Europeans, just like how you say, they went through so many things, and despite the fact that we often make fun of, their genetical aspect or how they are, those people are very, I will say, tough, mentally and physically. So if we really, take this thing seriously, we should study their history, of course, and study ours, and try to compare the psyches, try to compare them to us. Again, we're not utilizing the European as a standard or things like that. We're just trying to find solutions, of course, and help our brothers and sisters think a bit better. So there's a question, Brother Kofi. Let me see if I can show it real quick. I don't know if you can see the screen.
Yeah. Okay. How do you discern the pathology of European psychology from the useful aspects of their survival instinct? Man, that's pretty easy. Okay, let me not say that's pretty easy, because, like I said, some of us, we take an interest. Other people, they don't take an interest. They don't feel like it's important, or they don't see what we might see. So Michael Bradley's The Iceman Inheritance, when I first read that book, I didn't really think too much about how European people do things and how things are structured for them and how they've always done things. But once you read a book like that, you'll see that, okay, they might be in power, which they are. They might have a lot of influence over different people groups. They might be like the top human group on this planet as far as influence is concerned. But you'll see all the chaotic things that come with that, and it's their fault. Like, it's things that they've done, and they it's kind of like a side effect, or it's collateral, and they just say, well, it is what it is. That's how they think. They don't think, what's the best possible way that we could do something without collateral, like, killing people or making people sick. making people miserable, making people feel like social and economic outcasts. They don't care. At least it seems that way from observing from the outside in. I think that if any one of us went to Europe and we would just travel around European countries, I think we would see definitely that Europeans have this idea that their way is exceptional and there's no other way, when clearly that's not true. So, say we want to manufacture arms or something like that, and if Africans said we can't manufacture arms without manufacturing waste that would destroy certain amounts of our resources, our land, whatever you want to call it, I think that we would try to find a way to manufacture these things without that happening. Europeans, they don't care. Like, they just go. They just say, "Oh well." So you're saying that we're gonna have some waste? Ah, all right, well, it's whatever. Like, it's pretty. Once you get into it, I'll say this: once you get into it, it's pretty easy to say, okay, we can take things from other people that they've done, and we would just have to be very mindful. Europeans don't seem to be very mindful. They just seem to do things and they just say, whatever, we'll deal with it later. And then they never deal with it. And then they can't deal with it. So it's something that they can't deal with. You can't deal with nuclear waste, contamination, groups that are, they become, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the French, man. Like the French, it seems like the French have always been at odds with other Europeans, man. And they just never just have been one solid group. But that's, you basically create a lot of animosity on the way up, so I think it's pretty clear once you get into it that there's a lot of pathology in their way of doing things, and you can try to separate that as much as possible, or just come up with your own way of doing things.
Brother Kishili, I hope Brother Kofi answered your question. Do we have any other question or questions? Anybody? I know we're typing here. So anyway, okay. I'm just indeed. So I'm gonna try to go to the next slide. So, don't know what's going on with this thing, but okay. So, Brother Kofi, just before I go to the next slide, how did you come across? I know you went briefly on it, but how did you come across psychology, for instance? Like, were you introduced into it, or was it just your, I will say, your curiosity that brought you to learn about psychology in general?
When I was in high school, I had this. It was a psychology book that I stole it from the library. I stole it from the school library, and it wasn't per se a psychology book. It was some kind of weird like encyclopedia of different psychologists, and they would just have, I guess, the most famous quote by this psychologist or something of that nature. And I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was one section that spoke about people as wolves or animals, and how they have this pack mentality. And I was just like, that's interesting. I never thought of it like that, And I started looking at my friends and my social group, and I said, I never really thought that we acted that way. So I think that kind of sparked an interest in people's behavior, like why people do things versus, like, why don't I do this thing versus, a vast majority of people doing this. So why do I do this? And, what's the answers for it? And I think it just rolled right into, like, years later, obviously. I picked up this book by, I think he's a Jewish guy. He was talking about the experience of enslaved Africans on ships.
So I think one of my burning questions was, this might be an ignorant question to ask, but like, how do people just, like, how does that happen? How do you let that happen? Like, did they fight? Did they, how did you let people put you in ships like that, pack you into ships like that? Like, what happened? Like, what's going on here? Would I have been one of those people on the ships? Because I'm not like I wouldn't say I'm a tough guy. So I would say, I'm a fighter, but in a broad sense, I just wanted to know why do these things happen? Like, why would people pack other people into a ship and then dehumanize them and do all of these awful things? So that's really how I got into psychology. I had a book in high school, and it said a couple things, and I just found it interesting. Like, people being compared to animals, I didn't think that was a thing. So it just kind of dovetailed from there.
Thank you, brother. So we're going to the next question, brother. Do you feel or do you think that we are psychologically prepared to face the worst or to even navigate throughout the world right now?
If I'm gonna be honest, no, I don't think so. I think that just from what I see, I think that I think most African people would just kind of resist through social media. I don't like boiling an entire group of people down to what you might see on social media or what you might see in your everyday life. But if that's any indication, it's not a good sign, because okay, let's hurt people's feelings. Let's talk about current events and things that happen all over the world and things that happen right where I live. When we look at how we handle things historically, it's way different to how we handle things now. I think that just looking at history, like rebellion, like being a rebellious people, being people who see a situation, they identify each other, and they see they see things in groups. Africans used to see things. We used to see things as African and other, even if you were from a different group. Like, me and Avanon would be from different groups, and I would see him, and I would see him, and I would just, like, nod and say, "We need to do something. Like, this is no good. We need to do something. I don't know what language you speak. I don't know what you sound like yet, but we look alike. So we need to do something. We need to make a plan, an escape plan." Today, man, you stare somebody in the eye too long, they might fight you. But if someone who doesn't look anything like us stares us in the face too long, we'll think twice about fighting them, because, and I kid you not, I hear this too often. That guy might be able to help me. This Indian guy might be able to help me. This European guy might be able to help me. This Asian guy, this Chinese guy, like, they know things that Africans don't know. Psychologically, we are socialized to dislike each other, down to when we see other African people, we see a dead end. We don't see a way out. We don't see someone that we can potentially plan with and do rebellious things with. We want to do rebellious things with other people, but then when we do rebellious things with other people, it's kind of like I haven't read thoroughly about this, but it's like the insurrection in Iraq. What was it? The Zanj rebellion.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You got all these Africans fighting side by side with these Arabs, and then the Arabs come out looking like they won the war. It doesn't look like African people won this war, because the African men are dressed like Arabs. And you would question the ethnicity and the racial makeup of these African men, because they got their faces covered like the Arab men. They got the turbans. they got the smocks and all this stuff. They speak in Arabic now, or they speak like some kind of Arabic, Afro-Arabic language now. So today, man, you Avanon, you can't get guys to stop saying the N-word. You know, you might agree with everything that they're saying, but you say, look, man, you seem like a solid guy. Can you stop using the N-word? And they'd be like, oh, come on, man, like that's so petty. And you just like, look, it just makes me uncomfortable. I don't think that we should be using such a derogatory word. It's like a horrible word. That's a horrible word. Can't get brothers to stop saying that word. You cannot get women to drop feminism. All of this is a psychological thing. It's these things you cannot. It just explain it to somebody for just a moment, and they'll just listen to you. They will check out. They will check out as soon as you attack their little thing that they like to carry around with them. They check out. One of my triggers was Kofi, you need to get into spirituality. It didn't bother me that much, but I just said, come on, why do we need to, I would just kind of, but it's true. It's absolutely true, man. And that's how deep it is. Even someone who's smart will check out of doing anything with anybody because they just feel like, they disagree. Part of being psychologically prepared for something is being able to listen and challenge something that you might not understand or that you might not agree with, and then coming away with, okay, I thought about it and it makes sense, or I thought about it and it doesn't make sense, but here's why, and let's have a discussion about it. African people don't do that, man. You still got Africans that say, well, if you go to this African country, that African country, and you have a certain accent, you're a white man. It's like, okay, I can understand that, but it doesn't make sense.
Brother, let me ask you a question real quick based on what you just said, because you said something earlier before I forget. You were saying that it's very difficult to work with another black person as opposed to looking at a white person or a Chinese or whoever and say, you know what, this person can find you something, or this person can help you. Like, this is something, I've been reading, especially in Destruction of Black Civilization, for instance, in which he was saying there are some group of black people who have been fighting each other for thousands of years. But when you try to trace the issue, you can't even find what brought those people to start fighting each other, right?
Yeah.
But here we have the same issue 2,000 years later. We still have issues working together, even within the Pan-African community, for instance. There are so many groups that don't like each other. So how can we overcome those things, and how can we bring trust? Because based on what you're saying, and I know myself, I know there's a trust issue among us. So how can we, I will say, reestablish, the trust? How can we make African people to look at each other as brothers and sisters instead of enemies, or you know what I mean? Like, it's I think it's a very important question to address, because why is it so easy for us to trust other people than trust our own people, for instance?
That when I read that, I kind of said to myself, okay, we've been fighting for what seems like forever. I think at a certain point, once you run into a greater danger or a greater issue, like an existential danger, I don't think that group fighting, infighting, is an existential danger until you meet another group that wants to wipe out both groups, or they want to enslave both groups. That's the real existential danger. But I think that the way that you might be able to combat that, say these people have been fighting for as long as we can remember. You would just have to say something about, look, I know we've had our differences. Is again, Europeans have done it. Asians have done it. They have had so much infighting. They have been fighting so long that they've forgotten what the cause, what the reason is. But at a point, they looked, they stopped, they looked, they said, "Yo, other people are starting to do things different." And it's kind of, it's, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of scary. Like they're starting to inch toward us. The people that we've always known to be fighting, like every time we go trade silk or something with them and they're always fighting, they're no longer fighting. Now their posture is different. Now they're talking about, well, instead of trading the silk, I was maybe thinking that you just give us the silk. And now they're like 3, 4, 5 times bigger and stronger than you remember them, while you've been fighting with your brother, your cousin, or something like that. So I think that Black men, especially men, okay, let me just say this, okay? It's going to sound a certain way, but let me just say this. I think that Black men have to understand that everything lives and dies through us, our ability to do things. If Black men do not do things, nothing is going to work. It doesn't matter how many strong women we have in our nations and our groups. Women do not make things go. The only way that women make things go is if they say, look, you're the man, you figure it out. Get out there and figure it out. I'm not going to go out there. You go out there. I'm not going to go face those other men. You go face those other men. I think that Black men need to realize that, look, you might not like this guy. You got to work with him. You got to put your smarts with his smarts. You got to put your bravery with his courage. You got to put your intelligence with his ingenuity. You guys have to work together, because if you don't, both of you are going to be working for the Arab. Both of you are going to be the Chinaman's pet, I think it's as simple as that, man. Psychologically, you do whatever you need to do. You figure it out. I think that we're too smart. We are sentient beings. We're not just like animals like the rest, like lions and tigers and stuff. We don't just like operate on some it's like a linear thing: food, survival, shelter, defense, offense. We're more nuanced than that. We're more complex. Men have to understand that you might not like this person, you might not like these people, but you are now in a situation that is unprecedented, because now your survival is in question. Not even just your survival. You'll survive. You will have children. You will have more Black children, but those Black children will now be some kind of they'll be property, whether or not they're in chains or not. They're gonna be property. They're gonna be somebody else's thing to do whatever they please with. So smart, but they work for Indians. Avanan, let me tell you, if Africans don't understand that Indians are trying to get this stuff together, all right, India can't get it together, but if they get it together before we do, that says a lot.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a certain way, but it's true, man. Everybody thinks that.
Brother,
Chinese people
let,
think that. Japanese people think that. All right,
let
if
me
the
just
Indians get it together before the Africans, that's a shame.
But let me just put emphasis on what you just said. In one of my recent lives, I was saying, because I work in the tech field, and we build apps for pharmacies, hospitals and things of that nature. Sometimes I do what we call pharmacy activation. So, new pharmacy has been bought and they need to be activated to the, Ministry of Health, and to see what type of prescription can be reimbursed, or things of that nature, right? And those things are very monitored by the government, when it comes to insurance and things of that nature. So guess what? I say this most of the time, brother, when I have to make, let's say, 10 calls to activate some pharmacies. Among those 10 calls in Canada here, I will speak to at least 5 to 7 pharmacy owners, right? And who are they? Indians most of the time. So they are taking over the health industry here gradually. Most of the doctors are Indians. So they're going, brother. They're trying to get their thing together. And like you said, it's going to be shameful to be African looking at those people taking over everything. You mentioned the role of the woman in a revolution. And I think this is also social media has made this thing happen. So I would say so often is that we praise Black women as if Black women are going, when you study history, you see men go and conquer space or spaces or land and what. It's not women who do those things,
Right.
but we put, women. Our women are the strongest women. We have warriors, we have soldiers, and all kind of things. But where is the man? Where is the man in in this revolution? So again, we're not saying women are weak, but there are jobs that are requires manpower. Like you have to be masculine to say you're gonna go and attack another country and whatever the case might be. History has taught us those things, right? So why are we putting so much weight on our women to go and, I don't know, fight for us, for instance? Even this whole feminism thing or black women fighting for their right, they shouldn't be fighting. We should be the one actually putting up structures so that they can feel protected. They shouldn't be marching. We should be fighting so that they don't have to march. So this is again something we will have to address in another segment. But black men have to understand their role. And that goes with the falsification of African consciousness, with Dr. Emmons, because we don't know our place in this whole revolution thing, if I can put it that way. So, sisters, you don't have to be out there fighting for nothing. This is a man's job, period. I know some sisters may not like this because you've been taught that women can fight, women can be on a battlefield. Yes, when there's not enough men to do that. Yes, you know what I mean. So there are certain things that we really have to look at. That's why when you look at sport, for instance, sports often mimics life. You don't see men and women competing in the same team. You have national team, women team, and you have the men team. They don't compete together because genetically they are not the same. So we have to think about this thing when we talk about, revolution, when we talk about whatever we're talking about to build our nation, man, black men, you have to lead a certain way, you know. So going back to what I was asking in the slide, but so how can we prepare ourselves, for instance, because I know we are not psychologically prepared. So what are the, I would say, day-to-day habit that we can implement to our lives? Like, what are the things that we should be doing and be conscious of doing it? For instance, like, how can we prepare?
I think one of the most basic things that we could do is that we could just pay more attention to our surroundings. I think that we could look around and say, you know, every time you see a realtor, like a realty sign or something like that,
Mhm.
business, every time you see taxi cabs or anything like that, it's like what you posted in your story about the capitalist nigger.
Mhm.
You have to think, well, what am I doing as a man, specifically? What am I doing as an African man to reverse this this situation, or at least to get myself in a position to where I don't have to walk around with my head down or walk around thinking, well, at least I make a certain amount of money, because people make money. That's not an issue. People can make money, but when you're not the person that people have to go through to do certain things, it just becomes like, all right, well, I can deny your money at some point. I could say no. You want to buy this piece of real estate? I don't want to sell it to you. I don't want you to have it. It doesn't matter how much money you have. I'm trying to keep this real estate within a certain group. So you got to start asking yourself, what are the things that I could do? Now, I mean, in particular, I don't have the answers to that question, but there are brothers who do know that, they do have strategies for that. Psychologically, though, you have to prepare yourself for hardship. You have to prepare yourself for disappointment. And you just have to say, okay, that didn't work. What's next? You can't just say, black men tend to say, this is why we can't do things together. I mean, yeah, you feel like that, but you have to figure out, well, how can we do this? We need to figure out ways that we can do this, because you don't really have a choice. You can't just, I posted this video a long time ago about this guy. He was a wino. He was like a really, he's probably wasn't even that old, man. He's probably in his 50s or his 60s. And he was telling the interviewer, he said, sometimes I just want to lay down and die. I just want to lay down on the sidewalk and just, do you really think anybody's going to care if he does that? Nobody's going to care. You know what people are going to say? He should have tried harder. We don't have the luxury of having too much pity or sympathy, because especially when we're able-bodied, if we can't make up our minds to do things, even if they're difficult, no one's really going to feel sorry for us, man. I mean, you're going to have people who feel sorry for us, but that shouldn't affect you. You should just feel like, okay, while I have time on this earth, and as long as my people in a certain position, my group, you have to see it as my group. Psychologically, you have to think, this is my group. That black child, even though that child is not my child, that black woman, even though I don't even know her, they're my responsibility. I need to do things to make sure that they're safe. If our neighborhoods are not safe, I need to be a person that every time they see me, they know that they're safe. They at least know that this guy is going to do something if something happens. More black men need to think like that. I mean, I really don't know what else,
Another question is for you, and people who are watching, is this, brother. Do you think that, of course, we have been colonized, mentally, spiritually, and all kind of things, but do you think that we are actually trying to compete with other people, but we are missing the priorities? Because you mentioned, for instance, the real estate industry, for instance, or field. I feel like everybody wants to go into a certain field. Like everybody wants to have a PhD, for instance. Everybody wants to have a master's. When it comes to essential services, we are overlooking those things as if those things are not, I don't know, doesn't reflect how intelligent you are. So we just uh, overlook those things, and then we have all those, I would say, black professionals, but we ended up again doing business with people who are oppressing us because we don't have those structures. I don't know if you see where I'm going, brother. Like we are, we want to be the most educated people, but at the end of the day, after we graduated or after being so successful at school, what do we do? Are we able to go and create structures, or even being a realtor, like somebody who we know that there's a black person, offering land for black people, or helping them acquire land, for instance, or purchasing houses, or whatever the case might be, right? So we have all those, I will say, black professionals, but we still don't have any industries. So do you think that we are overlooking certain industries, or is this a way, like, is the way to do things? Let's just graduate, have all those black professionals, and then we will think about what to do next.
It's like you say, the psychological makeup of a group of people tends to have their children go to school, they graduate, and then whatever they're going to do, they're doing for their group, even if they don't necessarily want to do it. I mean, all right, I live in New York City. Sometimes it's not eavesdropping. You just kind of hear people's conversation. You'll hear, he doesn't sound like he's Indian. He doesn't sound like he's Asian, but you'll hear these conversations. They'll say, well, I got my bachelor's in this, or I got my PhD in this. And, what I really want to do, I mean, I still do it on the side, but, I have to do this because of this. I have this responsibility that I must keep. It's like they don't even think about it. They do it because from a young age, it was drilled into their head that you have to help the group. The group is the most important thing. I think that African people, we suffer from this idea that if I can't attain happiness, I don't want happiness or it's like the idea of happiness itself. We don't have this mentality that, okay, look at how these FDA people or FBA people are looking at Nigerians and Ghanaians and whoever coming to America, getting their degrees, and then taking whatever they take back to their country. Do African Americans say, I need to take whatever my expertise is and go back home where I'm originally from. I might not have been born there. I might not know any languages there, but I learn, or I just feel an overwhelming responsibility because here, I mean, what am I really going to do here? Now, the only thing that you can really do is do what other people do. You have plenty of people who are not white who live in this country. They have a mother country, a father country. They do things for their mother country and their father country as much as they can. Sometimes it's hopeless. They can't do anything like Mexicans. Mexicans can't hope to help Mexico. The cartel is just, they have a stranglehold on them. They still do it, bro. They still do it. It's not even, it's like automatic. They just do it. Or they try to create that thing within this country. Now, I don't know, if you can do that, but what I'm saying is they get themselves into positions that they might not like per se, but it's beneficial. Whereas Africans, it's like you say, we just get the education, but where's the benefit? Where's the benefit in getting the education if you're not going to get into the industry and have like corner this industry, corner this market? You just get an education in the field. That doesn't guarantee you anything. What are the steps that you're now taking? What are the measures that you're now taking to get into that position to where you can lock this down and say, like, stick your flag in the ground and say, this is African territory now. This is not Kofi territory. This is, my name is Kofi, but I represent the African group. And I'm going to bring more Africans into this particular area. And we're going to dominate this area. Like, everything that I've done was just to secure this position. Now, from here, me and the boys who secure this area, we're going to try to get into another area. We're going to fund these guys over here. It's not even that complicated, bro. I mean, you see other people do it. It's like, yo, I hate to be, to repeat this, but Indians should not be out working us, man. They should not be out doing us in anything, man. They shouldn't, but they are. And you got to take your hat off to them because it's not that hard to figure out. We just have too much, we're just clueless in certain aspects, and we're just too egotistical. We think that shiny new badge, that the graduation thing, this doctorate or whatever, that's it. Like, oh, we have another doctor, we have another lawyer. Great, we're doing so well, but where's the fruit of this labor?
Exactly. But you keep mentioning the Indians, and I have to emphasize this, is that they are, when you look at the Indians, really, what you see a cultural people who promote their culture no matter what. Even if their children, like you said, are born here, they don't have the Indian accent. The culture is deep within them. So the culture bonds them together. The culture make them think about going back home or doing something in their own community, for instance, right? We have all those, I would say, Jewish community centers throughout the North America, Europe. You see them. Even if they are going to the white man's school, their children will go to the community center to learn about their history. They will all learn about the Shoah. They will all learn about Jewish history at the community center. The Arab here, when I say the Arab here, where I am right now in Montreal, I'm talking about, those people from the Maghreb, North Africa, Algerian, Tunisian, Morocco. There are plenty here. Same thing is happening. They're taking over all the small industries, grocery stores, whatever you need on a daily basis, you got to go to them. And guess what? They're building their community center just like the Jewish. You see their kids playing, finishing the school. Mama is going to force you to go to the community center to make you learn the language or learn the culture. So, we are proud to be Africans based on what we see on social media. But are we really promoting our culture? Are we utilizing the culture as a tool? Because again, I'm going to bring Dr. Amos said, if you cannot utilize culture to progress, then throw it away. It's useless to promote a culture that's not bringing you anywhere. So can we look at those people and see how cultural they are, how culture plays a big role in their progress, actually? because the Indians really, brother, you keep saying it, but I've said this 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I said the next superpower is going to be India because they're watching closely what China has done and then try to do it too. You understand? They're not trying to compete. They're not voting. They're not marching. They're not doing none of those things. They're just thinking about how can we build our own community in the West first, and then all the brains are sent back home to develop certain sectors. Like now, the pharmacy sector here in Canada, they are taking over that thing gradually. The gas station, it's them. Hotel, it's them here. And I'm sure hotel, they're big also into the hotel industry in America, right? So black people, again, brothers and sisters who are watching us, what can we do with all those black professionals? I know we have spoken about think tank groups, but people are not motivated because people want, quick gratification. They want instant gratification. So they don't want to be, part of something where you just brainstorm. They want to be, I don't know, praised whenever they come up with something. They want people to tell them, yes, you're the best PhD holder. But at the end of the day, how is this benefiting the race as a whole? Right? With all those lawyers we have, all those big, I don't know, even in the tech industry, we have so many brilliant people, right? But how many industries are we able to create? Or even the community centers, are we thinking about those things? Because this is part of psychology as well. We are preparing our children to face the world out there because the minute they leave the house, they're bombarded with all kind of propaganda.
Right.
So you have to redo or undo everything once they're home. And the only way you can do that is if you have a structure like a community center, like African community centers. We should be having, I think, those type of things to prepare the next generation because we're not preparing them. Literally, we are not really preparing them. It's not just to tell them you're black, you're African, be proud. That's not enough. That's not enough, in my own opinion. That's what I think. We're not providing them with the tools they have. So again, brothers, sisters, I'm really asking those things because our issues are serious. If we're not paying attention, we'll be, running around for the next 2,000 years, and nothing is going to happen. You see, we have seen tribes being erased completely. We have seen it already. It's not something new. So nothing is preventing us from, being removed or erased from history. So let's find solutions on how to prepare ourselves, of course, and the next generation psychologically, because we're not the same. People move as entity. Even the Jewish who were born, like I will say, let's say a fifth generation Jewish guy who was born in America, he doesn't know anything about Israel, but he knows because somebody taught him. Even if he never went to Israel, he knows something about Israel, and he will defend Israel before anything. So we have to get on that level. Same with the Indians, same with the Arabs. They move as a group, they move as one entity. When I go to the Arab store to purchase my grocery things, I don't see no black people at the counter. The only time I will see a black person is the security guy out there. He's not part of the family. So how can we, again, bring that type of, I would say, consciousness to our people, into our business or businesses? They may be racist, but they don't discriminate when you bring your money. They will take your money, sell you the thing. So let's think the same way. Let's provide services that people need actually. You know, so family, any questions, any comment, you're welcome to comment. Brother Kofi, would you like to add anything before I go to the next slide?
This is a question I want to ask you. Okay, so quickly, right?
Mhm.
The examples that other people provide for Africans. Why do you think that Africans can't just, well, it seems that way, right? When I started to learn about the independence movement, my biggest concern and question was, why do we think that socialism outright would work? Why not try to just conduct ourselves in some way that would work for us, like without going so far into adopting European ways, because I don't think that Europeans, they have things that they've learned from Africans that they don't go too far into it to help themselves. They just kind of cherry pick. So
Yeah.
why do you think that Africans can't be, I guess what you would say, unapologetically African? And you can tell and how we live and how we speak, but we have these little things here or there that clearly aren't African, but we make it work for us. Why do you think that is?
Well, that question, I hope I will find the right answer. But I will say it this way: we have been colonized to the point that even things that we do, we know those things are good for us, we will shun away from it. Because the education system, for instance, just basic stuff. When you are, let's say, an African from the continent and you from those French colonies, for instance, people will make fun of you when you cannot speak French, for instance, but nobody makes fun of you when you cannot speak your mother tongue, for instance, right? So when you start speaking French and you're making some, grammatical errors or what kind of errors you're making, people will be laughing. But people will welcome you when you say, "Oh, I don't speak my mother tongue." They will be praising you. They will even ask you for advice because if you cannot speak your mother tongue, it means that you have been educated by the white people, which means that you're more educated than us. So we measure everything with the white standard. And I think, you know, we keep doing this thing in our subconscious, but we don't know it. Even today, we do certain things. And I myself, I'm like, damn, I catch myself saying certain things and I'm like, no, that's not really what we should be saying or doing. So I feel like, since we have been conquered mentally, economically, and spiritually, sometimes it's like I say, it's a how can I say that, it's a process. Like you have to be decolonizing your mind every single day. So we African don't look at those things, but you know what I mean. And it's even more difficult to have this type of discussion with educated folks, because education means European education, right? So it's more difficult for us to even brainstorm with those people because, again, their way of doing things, their way of thinking is the way of European people, right? So you go to school to know how to put your thought on a paper. You have the introduction, you have the body part, you have the conclusion, and we operate that way without knowing that. Okay, sometimes I feel like we should bring, sorry, more Africanness to what we're doing. For instance, we're not saying, you know, when we talk about decolonization, for instance, we're not saying when you go to school, don't take math classes. We're not saying that. Mathematics is universal. What we're saying is, let's think about Africans. Let's think about how people do things, or how our people have been doing things, and let's update, because culture also, you have to update culture. You can't stay stagnant and say, yeah, this is my culture, I'm going to keep it. If your culture promote killing other people or your own people, that's a useless culture, for instance. We have to update that culture, reform it, or even, I don't know, update it completely. So I feel, again, it's part of colonization. We're still colonized. We, and you spoke about why Africans, for instance, are doing things the way they are doing, or why after independence, for instance, we're still the same, because those people who took power, but where were they educated? You know what I mean? They literally, what they did was copy and paste what worked for Europeans in Africa, and we know it's not going to work because our realities are completely different, right? So Kwame Nkrumah, for instance, no matter how good he wanted his thing to be, when you look at how, yes, he wanted to bring Garveyism, but you look at socialism, what you see is, okay, he literally copied, I will say, the communist ideology and tried to paste it into Ghana, but it doesn't work like that. That's why you need not just, I will say, educated people like, philosophers or teachers, but you need folks from all different fields, right? From mechanical engineers, like people who have a say in certain things. For instance, look at how we're still unable to industrialize agriculture in Africa, where now the Indians, since you're talking about Indians, they're thinking about building their own tractors too, and they went through a green revolution decades ago, right? But we're still struggling in industrialization, people are still, tilling their soil manually. How are you going to how can you, I will say, grow 1 ton of food if you're still tilling everything manually, if you don't have tractors? So the people in power are trained by who? By the same people who are, destroying our countries. So I think that's one of the many issues. We, like, it may be, rude to say this, but some of those educated black folks need to humble themselves and listen to the regular people, those who don't have a high education, because those are the people who are still in the countries because they don't have diplomas, so they can go anywhere, but they're making it work, right? Somewhere, somehow. I don't know if I answer your question properly, but brother, I think we are mentally colonized, and it's going to take a lot of effort, to leave that sphere, or that space in which we are right now.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Any questions, family, and input? We're here not just to, talk about regular stuff, but we are really here trying to find solutions. So the next, hey brother, okay, so hold on, let me just, turn if you can see. And I completely agree, brother. It's going to take people like us, because I feel like, this generation of Africans, we're more connected than our ancestors. Remember this. I mentioned Kwame Nkrumah, for instance. People from his era were coming to America to get an education, right? And once they graduated, they went back home trying to, again, you know, implement things they have seen in the West without really, I will say, consulting the population, right? And people to see like what will work for us. So we, the African, this generation now, I'm talking about the social media generation, we are more connected. For instance, we are all, talking about issues, utilizing the internet. And the goal here is actually pinpointing issues and trying to find solutions as well. And I feel like this is something the elders or the people before us did not do. You know what I mean? Everybody wanted to move separately and then thinking about unification of Africa, but there were no, I will say, work really to connect people. You know what I mean? Before thinking about a federated state, for instance. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but I feel like here right now, I'm from, Africa, living in Canada. I have brothers and sisters from America, brothers and sisters from the island, brothers and sisters from Europe, from different, different background. But the main goal is to unite. The main goal is to find solutions for us in the West, for instance, so that we can bring those solutions that we have found back to the continent and help those in needs. So this generation, actually, as I say, even though we're talking a lot, we are actually trying to unite. It's just that, like you say, brother Kofi, sometimes we have to put our ego aside and work with the next brother or the next sister. We may not like each other, we may not agree on everything, which is fine. But if we can agree on 1 or 2 points and we know those things are vital for community to prosper, why not? Why not? So we have so many brilliant brothers and sisters out there. So I think the time is now. Any ideas, even if we don't have the financial means, at least if the idea is practicable, it's something that we can utilize. Let's work on it, and let's spread the word so that people can actually see how valuable that idea is, and somebody may put money in it, or somebody may be able to gather a team and say, let's tackle this issue. For instance, this is something that once we have done it, will help our children, or we promote jobs, or we create jobs, or even will help us address certain patterns that we have, because we have a bad spending habit, for instance, as Black people. This is something pathological, for instance. Everybody wants the latest smartphone. Everybody wants this, everybody wants that. But at the end of the day, we're broke. You know what I mean? And I was telling one of my brothers last time, you see, since I came in Canada, I rarely see Chinese driving, expensive cars unless the guy is rich or she's rich. But you will see black people driving all kind of Range Rovers and things, and the guy is doing the same job as me, even though I'm well paid. But I'm not going to go and purchase a Range Rover. It's out of budget for me. But I see some of my coworkers who have those type of things, and I'm like, wow. But the Chinese guy there has been working with us for 2 years, same shirt every day, same pants every day, and he's not eating out. He's bringing his own food. The Indian guy, same thing. When he opens his Tupperware, you can smell the curry. The whole office is, spread with curry.
Yeah.
But we black people will go and purchase sandwich today. Tomorrow I'm eating Jamaican. Next time I'm eating Haitian. When you sit down and look at those things, those are patterns that we have to address as a group of people. So another comment from brother Manasseh. And I agree again, brother. I don't know how we can bring back I would say, saving up, like as a way of doing things. Trying to minimize your spending habit, for instance, right? If you have 10 pairs of sneakers, well, you may not need 10, but don't buy anymore, right? You know what I mean? Like it's those are
True.
simple things that we can do ourselves. Nobody's pushing us, even though of course there's propaganda, there's commercial pushing consumerism. But at the end of the day, we have to be conscious. You know what I mean? I don't see so many Indians purchasing Nikes, for instance. If they have, yes, they have 1 or 2 pairs. They don't have 10 or 20. Why is it us? You know what I mean? Why is it black people sleeping in front of a sneaker shop because of the latest or the old Air Jordan that they revamped and selling back to you? Who do you see there sleeping and waiting for the shop to open? I rarely see Chinese or Indian doing those things, for instance. Why can't you know what I mean? So let's, brothers and sisters, I know here we're not going to solve those issues. You know what I mean? We're not going to solve those issues, but we should stop promoting certain things. When I was in Africa before I came to North America, just something funny I'm going to tell you. I was talking to a Ghanaian elder who was actually living in America. So when he came back to retire in Africa, he had all kind of spirit in his house. And I used to see Hennessy in hip hop video clips. Never tasted to know how it tastes like. The elder had Hennessy, and he's like, "Oh, when I came at that time, I used to drink. So I say, oh, I'm just going to go with the local palm wine." He's like, "No, I got Hennessy for you. This is what black people drink in America." And I was like, "Oh, really? Oh, is it made by an African person?" He's like, "No, no, no, no. But that's for African." And when I came here, that's all I saw. Most black people drink Hennessy, right? And I'm like, wow. So this is a habit. Same with those Newport cigarette, for instance, right? I don't know if people are still smoking this, but I heard that yes, black people love Newport. I'm like, what's that? It's like, oh, it's a menthol. It's a cigarette with menthol, and black people love it. And I'm like, whoa. So we are literally labeled with some brands that we didn't create. We didn't create, and that's pathological in itself, right? So why are we promoting those things? I'm not saying don't drink it, but don't advertise it. Don't go and advertise it. You know what I mean? So we are responsible for those things, because what we do, the next generation will copy, and we do the same thing. They will do the same thing. And I'm talking about 15 years ago. I came to Canada, it's been 12 years, and people are still drinking Hennessy. You know what I mean? Brothers and sisters still smoking Newports. So, anyways, brothers and sisters, we have a lot to do, Brother Kofi. I'm going to go and address the last slide. I know we spoke about this thing already, how to prepare the next generation, but I feel like we should come up with an agenda. Like, okay, what's first on the list, for instance? Because sometimes I feel like we get our priority messed up. You know what I mean? Yesterday I was talking to Brother Manasseh, who's here. He's into STEM as well, and we were talking because he said, "Brother, I'm tired of selling chicken. I don't want to be selling chicken, and I want do what I've learned, like what I've studied in school." I said, "Yes, brother, we should." But when we sat down, we've been sitting down for 2 months now. We couldn't come up with anything because most of the ventures we want to go into requires thousands of dollars, and we're not talking about 25,000. We're talking about hundred thousands of dollars. So just yesterday, we had like a 2 hours conversation, and I said, "Brother, you know what? Let's go back to selling chicken, brother. Let's just expand on it. Let's make it bigger, so that maybe in 2 years we will have enough money to go into the tech field and build our own stuff." But if we just want to sit down and say we're not going to do anything because we want to go into tech, we will spend 2 years just brainstorming and doing nothing, right? So when you see the China guy or the Chinaman having his convenience store, maybe he doesn't want to do that. I've seen doctors opening convenience store here, Indian doctors, but the guy is still going to night school because he want to open his own pharmacy. But in the meantime, he has his gas station or he has his convenience store. But I feel like we have this, pride in us. Like, oh man, I'm graduating. Hell no, I'm not going to sell no burger. I'm not going to go and create no convenience store. I need my own business. But at the end, we don't go create the business. We just go and work for somebody and take pride in, oh, I work for the biggest tech company. Oh, I work for Apple. But that doesn't, really develop the community. So the next generation, I think we have to, I think it has been said already by many scholars, we have to look into those little things like grocery stores. How is it possible that the Asian owns more than 80% of the fruits and vegetable stores in America? How is it possible? And we have Black people living on that land for hundreds of years. We should at least master one sector. And when people think about that sector, or they know this is Black people who offer this type of services. We have nothing that people can look at us and say, yeah, Black people produce this. Or even if we don't produce, because the Chinese don't produce the fruits, they just go and purchase it in bulk and open the grocery stores, right? The farmers are the Americans. Americans are big farmers. So what can we do instead of purchasing final product? I'd rather us going and purchasing fruits and vegetables from the white man and creating our own stuff than purchasing clothes or bags and thing and put the red and black and green logo on it and say this is black business, for instance. Those are things that only Black people can buy. Nobody else is going to buy those things. And this is not how you generate generational wealth. This is not how you generate funds or money. We have to be looking into those things that we call basic stuff. Those are things that people spend money on it on a daily basis. You eat every day, you drink water every day, right? So many things that we overlooked, and then the Chinese are there producing the thing and we selling back to us. The cotton, for instance, isn't ironic that Black people have been brought to America to cultivate cotton, and we still don't have no, factory where we transform cotton to clothes. And that's all our ancestors have done for 300 years, growing cotton and tobacco. And even the tobacco that we smoke, even Black people have to smoke cigarette. At least create your own thing. So what are brothers and sisters, again, you can DM us, you can email, send messages, because we need to find proper structures. We need to find a way to motivate the next generation, not just to tell them go and do this thing, but we have to be behind them. We have to nurture them. We have to, again, don't tell somebody, yeah, go and read books and then there's no follow-up. You got to pick up the person's brain. What did you return from that book? Right? At the end of the day, it's not just post books and sources and information. Like, what do we do after the brothers and sisters or the young generation have studied those things? How can we groom them? Because without the community, those people are nothing. And that's what you see in the Indian community. Brother Kofi mentioned this in the beginning. There's some people who don't want to do certain things, but the family will tell them you have to do it because you're doing it for the community. You know what I mean? Our parents push us into, I will say, medical field, engineering, but they're not thinking about the community. They want you to get a good job. They want you to work for somebody or for a notorious company. So we, this generation, we understand the challenges. How can we implement certain structures? And if they are not real structures, at least some type of, I don't know, meetings of things where we can discuss tangible plans, things that the things that will make sense to the younger folks. Because I know young folks won't stay, in a meeting for 4 hours or 2 hours even. They will be distracted. So how can we keep those people focused and on the ball so that they can do things for their community. You know what I mean? So on this slide, for instance, briefly, what I put is, we have the community, right? The community is the base of everything. We have the teachers slash the elders, and by teachers or elders, I'm not saying, the conventional teachers or an elder. Anybody who has knowledge, who has something, should be some type of elders for the younger people. And then we have the children, of course, who are the top, who are the future. So how are we preparing those people? We have to be thinking about this thing. We have to be thinking about the children whenever we talk, whenever we say certain things, even with certain words that we utilize. Our children shouldn't be using the N-word right now after all these, social media, I would say, outburst or social media revolution that we have. We should be mindful of what we say so that the next generation don't use the same words or term to call each other. We should be able to teach them that having a small job or moms and pops shop is not something, you know it doesn't show how intelligent or how stupid you are. No, you can be a doctor, like I said, and have a gas station. You can be this and have all kinds of things, but at the end of the day, how are you you know making your community better? Those are the things that we have to teach our children. I don't know if anybody has something to add for the coffee. If you have anything to add, let me know and say to the people, of course, because we have people, watching us. So, brother Coffee, the floor is yours.
I just want to add to everything that you were saying. Anyone who wants to expand on what Avanon has been saying, and I guess a more enthusiastically thorough manner, the introduction, oh no, I'm sorry, the foreword to The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat by Amos Wilson. The foreword is by Sababu Plata. That's the editor and the publisher. I can't stress to you enough. The foreword is everything that Avanon is saying and more. I can't stress that to you. Like everything that Avanon has been saying is in that foreword, and it's like this thing is like foreword is probably like 20 pages.
That's the book that brother Coffee is talking about. Don't know if you can
Yeah,
see it. So this is a gift by one of my good brothers, brother Mike. You know, Also another book, brother Coffee. Before, sorry to interrupt you, before I forget, another book. This is a book that I saw on
oh
brother
yeah,
Coffee's page long time ago, brothers and sisters. That I can't remember
yeah.
when he posted that thing, and I've been looking for that book. When I found it was a bit expensive. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna purchase it. So the links to some of those books are in the description. Once the live is done, I'm sure you should be able to see those things. Brothers and sisters, before I forget, if you have any black bookstores, if they have a website, let me know so that instead of putting the link to Amazon, let our brothers and sisters who want to purchase those books purchase directly from a black owned bookstore. And another okay, something also easy read for brothers and sisters. Easy read. This is not something too big. And another book, you know, that book, I'm sure Brother Kofi spoke about that book. I was introduced to this book by a brother called Kenty. They took down his page a long time ago. He sent me the PDF. So I was like, damn, I need the physical copy. Like, I need to highlight my own thing. This is a very important book, brothers and sisters. The link of course also is in the description box. And those books are getting expensive. I'm not gonna lie to you folks. So if you have some extra change, purchase them now. Don't say I'm gonna put it in my cart, because before you realize, trust me, I have some books in my cart when they were 30 something. I should have just bought them. Now they're 60, 70 something bucks. So Brother Kofi, yeah, go ahead again on the book that you were talking about, the self-hatred and self-defeat by Dr. Amos. Anything that you want us to, for the viewers to, like, highlight or pay attention to? I know the entire book is a gem, but you were talking about the forward, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this book is important because it basically talks about well, Amos, he's always been centered around children, like childhood development, early childhood development, and that's important because we don't really think about what happens to children as they're aging and they're learning and observing the environment, and then we wonder. My elders, they used to say things like, where do we go wrong, or what I don't know, I don't understand what's going on with these young people, but I don't know if they see the world the same way that we see it, because when I went outside when I was younger, and the things that I would see, I would have questions that the only answers that you would really get is, well, if you stay in school, you won't end up like that. And that's pretty much the only, you don't really have like a some type of strong culture to keep you in line. It's kind of like these things, it's nothing else going on. So these things, they intrigue you, and then you might get mixed up in it, and sometimes it's too late. But Amos, he speaks about that. He says, if you don't take 100% responsibility for your child's development or children's development in a society, bad things can happen, especially in the situation that we're in another people's society, in another people's country. But even in African countries, like you speak on, the colonialism is just rampant. It's almost as if this cycle just can't end. It's almost, it seems like it's impossible, but the answer is, you need to just go back to what works. Like, this clearly doesn't work, but that has worked for us for a long time. But there needs to be improvements as well. You need to improve on what worked in the past. You need to bolster it. You need to make it more effective. You need to make it stronger. You need to even make it seem like it's different, but it's still the same. You know how they say the more things change, the more they remain the same. But that's the most important aspect of this book is literally the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat. How is it that African people continue to have habits, thoughts, ideas, cultural containers that it just seems like we can't escape from this miserable position? And it's because we don't do enough to identify these issues and then abrogate them. We don't want to do it because it's like you were saying in your story. You said you use this term, pathological normalcy. Pathological normalcy is, from what I read, is when you have something that's no good, but now that it's normal, no one can speak against it because that's what we do. So we call each other the N-word. We're not N-words, but that's what we do. So we're going to keep doing it, even though it basically creates this sense of meaninglessness. And so when I see another N-word, his life don't matter. I don't care to work with him. He's probably out to get me anyway. You have all of these negative, self-destructive thoughts. It might seem really simple, but it's true. It's what it is. You don't see Japanese people running around calling each other kamikaze pilot or zipperhead or something like that, So, and you see how their nation thrives. I mean, it's not, these places are not perfect. China's not perfect. Europe is not perfect, but they have certain cultural things in place for their youth where they teach them, you don't do this, you don't do that. If you want to make you know, your mother and father proud, your country, your nation proud, this is what you do. You know, people, they hate seeing this white supremacist, like, oh, you know, you are the great white race. They have every right to feel that way. Like, that's none of my business. My business is to tell my kid, hey, you are part of a great people. You are going to be a great man. You're going to be, you know, you're going to be one of the people that gets us out of this, you know, this bullshit. And I'm going to help you. And maybe I'll be remembered through that. You know, Avanan will be remembered through that. Like how we help our children and other children to do away with these ideas that keep us from progressing. So that's what this book basically highlights. And I mean, it's kind of more of the same from Amos, but it's from a different angle, and it's just more in depth than maybe his other work. So I think it's a great read. I think it really makes you feel like, okay, we can really do this if we do the right things, put in the work.
No, thank you, Brother Kofi. And thank you, brothers and sisters, you know, for being here. One last thing I want to add is when Brother Kofi was talking about how colonialism is really rampant on the continent, I will say this: the only way out for brothers and sisters from the continent to feel a bit, I will say, valued is by brothers and sisters from the diaspora to talk to them, actually. Because, again, like I said multiple times, when you're from the West, a black person from the West going to Africa, trust me, they will praise you as if you're God, actually. You understand? And you will see people saying, because yeah, he's from the, you know, he's from the white man country, so he knows more than us, right? But if those people going on the continent had, I will say, the how can I say that? You know, the information that Brother Kofi, for instance, has been putting out there on psychology may be able to help a lot of brothers and sisters on the continent, because we have seen folks from America going to Africa to open schools. But what type of school are we talking about? The same system. The only thing they're changing is it's the history. They're teaching more African history. But the way is, you know what I mean? When we talk about psychology, are our children meant to sit in a classroom for 4 hours still? I don't think so. Those are things that we have to look at. You know, those are basic stuff, but you know what I mean? So let's, again, try to connect or reconnect the diaspora to the African continent. You know, put some hope in those peoples and let them know that, listen, we know we're not able to provide jobs or what not, but it doesn't mean that you have to lower yourself when you're talking to the white people. It doesn't mean that you have to feel inferior when the Chinese, you know, is coming and building all kind of things and hiring your people. So we need, you know, again, we don't need motivation. We don't need motivational speakers either. We need people to really show our brothers and sisters, like how we empower each other here on social media. We have people, brother, you know, when I read Brother Kofi's post sometime, like, yeah, I need to do more on this. Same thing with me. Some people will say, brother, thank you for posting this book. I want to read it and I want to apply the knowledge, you know. So same thing. We have to find a way to give power to those people, because no matter what you say or how you feel, you may feel like, you know, those people feel like you're less African. Those people know that you know more than them, because a lot of things that you know about slavery, they don't know there. You know, the revolution, the rebellion, they don't teach those things there, because the curriculum is, you know, is European. They learn about Europe before learning about Africa. And how are they introduced to Africa? The first chapter is slavery. But here we have the opportunity to read books, to even go online, you know, search certain things and references. So we should be, you know, acting like, you know, like a command center, like where we, you know, you assign tasks to people. You know that, yes, those people right now have the knowledge on psychology. They have books, they have references. Because if you look at Africans, Chinwezu, for instance, he's the only one who goes against all those authors that we praise. Even how you call this guy, man, who wrote Things Falls Apart? You know, he was against that guy. He said, no, those people are promoted. They're winning all those awards because they're not really changing or challenging the status quo. That's why Chinwezu is no longer living in Nigeria. He's living in Ghana. He can have those type of TV show in Nigeria. He knows, and people know why, because he goes against the current narrative. So we know those things. We know who are who. And I was talking to brothers back home, and I said, you should be studying about Chinweizu. They were like, well, but he has been blacklisted in Nigeria, so what was the need? And this is where you, brothers and sisters, or us from the diaspora, comes in. Say, no, actually, you have to study this guy. Why was he blacklisted, for instance? You should ask yourself this question. It's not because he was just talking about the government, the Nigerian government. No, he was talking about the government in Africa as a whole, period. That's why he's blacklisted, and so on and so forth. Read his sources. Why does he say these things? And we, again, the people from the diaspora, we are in a better position to provide those information to people, encourage them, say, listen, there is a better tomorrow. We just have to think as one entity. Stop with the tribalism. Stop with, yes, I'm from Ghana, so Ghana is better than Nigeria, or Nigeria is better than. Stop those things. What do we have in common? How can we work together? So that's where, brothers and sisters, you guys come in, because you're a mix of all those things. You're from Ghana, you're from, I'm sure some of us even here, I talk about Togo, I talk about Benin, but I know I have ancestry in Ghana, in Ivory Coast and Nigeria. You know what I mean? I still have people in those countries. So we have to empower them. We have to keep pushing the African unity. Forget about your flag. Forget about your country. We look alike. What can we do together? I think that's what I took from you, brother Kofi, when you're in your introduction. Psychologically, when we talk about a group of people, what do we have in common? We have more things in common than we have differences, right? So let's actually work and and address those, I will say, issues, and forget about where you're from, what language you speak. Do you look like me? Yes. So let's work together. That's all I have to say, family. Brother Kofi, once again, thank you for your precious time. We will do another one. I don't know when, but Brother Kofi's, brothers like Kofi are really needed in the community. So again, find a way to spread the message out there. Share the video. Talk to your brothers, talk to your sisters, with your family. Somebody can come up with a solution, for instance, or a good idea that we can implement, right? So maybe during our next live, we can talk about those type of ideas and whatnot. So family, stay blessed. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for your precious time, Brother Kofi. Have yourself a great Sunday, folks.
Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate that.
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. Peace, peace, peace. Don't forget to share the video, family. Don't forget to comment. So I'm out, and have yourself a blessed day, folks.
When I am dead, wrap the mantle of the red, the black, and the green around me. For in the new life I shall rise.